Councillor Swendseid.
And I'm Councillor Brent Robinson. Thank you for joining us this evening.
So as Mayor Thorn mentioned, we recognize that there are questions in our community about growth and development and questions about how growth connects to water. So in myself and Councillor Robinson's presentation, hopefully we'll help you understand some of the fundamentals of growth and water and how it relates to Okotoks. Once we're done our presentation, the members of council and Vin will be here in the room in the back, so please feel free to come up and ask us any questions that you may have. And if we can answer your questions, we'll commit to finding the answers for you. So I will turn it to Councillor Robinson, who's going to give us a general overview of regional growth.
Thanks. If I stand in front of this one, is that one going to not too much feedback? We're good? All right, good. So just to talk a bit generally about growth in Alberta and Okotoks, this past year, a record was set for population growth in Alberta. We added approximately 184,000 new Albertans. The majority of those residents settled in the Edmonton or Calgary areas. What happens is communities like Okotoks then experience growth as well because they're often viewed and considered as an extension and a near alternative to those larger communities, in our case, Calgary. The people who come and settle there all need somewhere to live, and this puts pressures on the housing and rental markets in those communities, and we've all seen the increase in prices in recent years. The fact that people continue to arrive in Alberta has both positive and negative impacts on our communities. The more people that live here, the more people are available to increase the labor supply, ease staffing shortages, and provide services in our communities that we all enjoy. As Mayor Thorn mentioned earlier, increasing population also increases the resources that are available to the provincial government, and we'd like to hope that some of those resources also then filter down into Okotoks. Some communities in our region have taken what is called a market-based approach to growth. This allows an increase in growth in the real estate market to drive how fast growth happens. Other communities like Okotoks have taken what's called a managed approach to growth. For an example of the difference, the past 10 years, the city of Airdrie has taken the market-based approach, and as a result, it has quadrupled in size over the past 20 years. Communities like Okotoks, or another example would be the community of St. Albert, which is a satellite community to Edmonton, have chosen the managed growth approach, and as a result, their population has only doubled over the last 30 years, and that's about the same as Okotoks' ratio. These different approaches to growth are a choice by the community.
Excellent. So Councillor Robertson kind of gave an overview of the region. So I'll give you a quick snapshot of Okotoks growth specifically. So let's zero in on Okotoks, and I'm going to start talking about the population cap because some folks still think that we have it, and then some folks think that this council was the one that lifted it. So I just want to get a base understanding of the population cap and kind of the history of that. In 1998, Okotoks put a growth cap in place which set the population ceiling at 30,000, and this was due to the limitations of the Sheep River and the Bow. In 2012, so 12 years ago, the council at that time voted to remove the population growth cap as significant growth was occurring around the town and putting pressure on town services and infrastructure. The reasoning was that by removing the growth cap, it positioned Okotoks to better manage growth while also creating economic opportunities like local job creation and improved infrastructure. So even though the population cap was removed in 2012, as you've heard, Okotoks has been one of the slowest growing communities within the region. And I know it doesn't feel like that when we see all the new development occurring, but as of 22, our population was nearly 32,000, and this equates to a 1.34% year-over-year growth rate, which is a really, really low growth rate. And as Mayor Thorn mentioned, we only built 130 homes last year compared to other communities in the region. So this next part might be a little bit boring, but it's really important to talk about. So I'm gonna try to make it quick, so no politician ever, but it's really important. So we know that people are worried about the town's growth and if it will change the town that we all love. And this is where the municipal development plan comes in, the MDP. This MDP is a 30 to 40 year plan, and it describes what Okotoks could look like in 60 years, and it was created through a community visioning process. And the reason that I'm bringing up the MDP is that yes, we are growing, but we are growing thoughtfully. As the MDP states, every new development must demonstrate that it supports the goals and principles of the MDP. So I've heard folks say that sometimes we're like playing Sims games and like placing communities and developments wherever we think, but that's not true at all. The MVP guides our growth, and that is our overarching plan. And so what are some of the principles in the MVP? Because I don't know if everyone has had a chance to read it. It's really exciting, but some of the principles in there that I thought you might be interested in is under the neighborhood planning and design, it states that new neighborhoods and public spaces must be accessible and safe and welcoming for diversity of users. It also states that neighborhoods must integrate parks and naturalized areas and include community gathering spaces. So elements like that is what will help us to keep that connected community as the new developments come in. And with regards to water, the MVP states that we need to require that new development projects apply best management practices in stormwater management, require low water landscaping, drought tolerant landscaping, and all new, and the list goes on. So it's a very detailed document. But this MVP provides the policy that we need, council members in the town, and we'll follow that, and it will help keep the elements we love about our town while growing thoughtfully. If you want to view it, it's on our website. As we grow, we also acknowledge the importance of adapting to climate change and that any growth strategy must integrate environmental sustainability. With that, I will pass it back to Councillor Robinson.
So if you thought that talking about municipal development plans was nerdy, just you wait, because we're going to talk about water allocation. So any development that you see today that's out in our community, when you see the grading, the utilities going in, the roads being built, all that, that has been approved through our municipal development plan, and then below that is an area structure plan. Most times there's also a neighborhood area structure plan under that. All the land use then comes up with according to a land use and our land use bylaw. And in order to get their land use bylaw change, they have to comply with something we call the water allocation policy. So we've had the question tonight. I assure you, we all see it in social media. We see it in our emails. Why do we keep growing? We have no water. It's all done. And we're here to describe exactly the system that we have in place to effectively manage the water supply for our community, to ensure that all the essential uses we have in water continue to be available to all of our residents. So before any new development can be approved in Okotoks, the developers must comply with our water allocation policy. It's one of a kind within Alberta, and the policy essentially requires developers to acquire or pay the town for the use of a water license. So in other words, the water allocation policy is in place to ensure there is sufficient water license capacity available prior to approving a new land use for any new development, and that ensures that the town receives reimbursement for any of the costs that it incurred in acquiring those licenses. This policy was first started starting in 2010, the town began purchasing additional water licenses in the Sheep River area, which are then used in our water allocation policy to facilitate any growth that occurs. During this period from 2010, the town increased our overall water license portfolio by 45%, from 2.8 million cubic meters to over 4 million cubic meters we now have in licensed capacity. And so to better demonstrate how the water allocation policy works, we're going to do a demonstration. So we're going to imagine this bucket. I'm just holding it. Ben said not to hold it, but I'm bringing it up anyway. So this is our Sheep River, okay? And so all the water flows down the Sheep River, and each one of these balls is a license for using the water in the Sheep River. So you can imagine each one of these balls represents a water license. Those licenses are issued by Alberta Environment, and they permit a municipality or anyone else who holds a license essentially to draw some water from the river. So the total of all the licenses is all the balls, which essentially represents the capacity of the Sheep River for us to draw water off of it. There used to be a time when there was a significant number of water licenses owned by a whole bunch of other people that weren't Okotoks, but now and only a few of the balls are owned by Okotoks, the ones that are currently in the bucket. But over the years, we've increased the amount of water that we have by acquiring more licenses. So now more of the balls in the bucket are owned by Okotoks. All right. So now let's suppose that there's a developer who wants to come forward and they would like to build a project at Okotoks.
I'm a big slick developer here. So, okay. Hi, Okotoks. I would like to build a project in your charming, friendly, and unique town.
and they interact with our planning department.
How much water do you need for your development, and are you coming with a license to support this project that you would want to transfer to us?
I'm wanting to build 100 new homes. I don't have any water licenses to transfer though.
Well, sorry, you cannot build your project until there is an appropriate amount of water that can be allocated to your project.
Well, now that's a shame for the developer. But let's
Alright.
suppose.
Yeah, so let's now imagine Colton is now the prepared developer who actually understands the policy, has now showed up. And he's going to now propose his development
Here, I'm in the
under
way now.
in compliance with the water allocation policy.
Hi, Okotoks. I'd like to build a project in your charming, friendly, and unique town.
How much water do you need for your development, and are you coming with a license to support this project that we transfer to us?
Well, I'm looking to build 100 homes, and I have enough water licensing to accommodate 25,000 cubic meters per person per day.
Well, that is great. We can now start the process to begin planning your project.
Awesome.
So essentially, that is the process by which we ensure that there is enough water that's controlled through the licenses granted by the government of Alberta, which is based on their evaluation of the capacity of the Sheep River before we conduct any other development. I think that's the end of the demonstration. Big hand to our demonstrators. Thank you to Colton Nickel and Davey Robertson. So even when the river is low or it's in drought condition, it looks like there's no water in the river, our system still works because the water allocation system is already taken into account and it has certain conditions on the licenses that change how this all works. And Alberta Environment has already ensured that we're not exceeding the capacity to draw off the river by monitoring how much we're drawing and complying with the licenses. And this is how we remain committed to the sustainability of the river in our community. So yeah, essentially, it's this water allocation process, which is how we ensure that all the water is allocated for all the users in the community. And just in terms of a bit more of the mechanics, how do we understand, do we know how much water we need per person? Essentially, we've estimated that each home uses 250 cubic meters per home per year. So when the developer comes to us and says, I'm going to build 100 homes, that means they must have enough license for 25 cubic meters per person, and that is based on our historic usage of 250 cubic meters per home. And as Mayor Thorn mentioned earlier today, last year we got down to 247 cubic meters, so we're even operating under that typically in most years, including lawn watering, under our schedule and all those things. Includes our 6 hours of outdoor watering per week, and which has been in place for the last 20 years. Yeah, and the reason that we're able to do that is our commitment collectively as a community to water conservation. So in 2010, when our population of Okotoks was only 23,000 people, we were actually using an average of 301 liters per person per day. And so we reduced that by a sixth to get down to that 247 liters, which shows the commitment of our community to be leaders in water conservation.
Okay, we're in the home stretch. Excellent, thank you for that demonstration. Hopefully that gives you a visual on how the water license allocation works. So now we know how we manage the Sheep River watershed. Let's look really quickly into the future and talk about where water will come from and to support future development and what that will look like. So as Mayor Thorn mentioned, Okotoks has found a supplemental water solution thanks to the efforts and leadership of our senior administrative team. But we need to be very clear, and Mayor Thorn has mentioned, and I'm going to say it again, just because we get a supplemental water pipeline does not mean that we will stop being stewards of water and relax water conservation measures. Water is the most precious resource we have here in southern Alberta, and it's not an option anymore not to use it wisely, especially as we head into a drought this spring and summer. And so policies like our new drought-tolerant turf lawn bylaw recognize this, and we really are trying to balance the growth that is projected in the future with being really cognizant of the water, and policies like the drought-tolerant turf aim to do that. So as a municipality, we have the responsibility to deliver to you, the residents and the businesses, clean water for essential uses. So essential uses are things like drinking and cooking and sanitation, having showers, some outdoor watering like vegetable gardens, and commercial use and firefighting. Non-essential uses are things like regular lawn watering, washing cars in the driveway, or spraying off sidewalks. And as a municipality, we will continue to do our part to deliver that essential water services to you. And as Mayor Thorn mentioned, we have a team of 35 professionals, some of them are here, and these folks are very good at what they do, and they are working together to bring forward recommendations on how we can further improve our water conservation efforts. With all that being said, we know that this coming year will be a challenging year for Okotoks and communities across the region as we are again facing drought conditions. Last spring, we were prepared to move into stage 3 of our water shortage response plan, but we did not have to because of this community's water conservation efforts. Thank you for following the outdoor watering schedule, taking advantage of our water conservation rebate programs, and then limiting non-essential water use that I mentioned before. It all matters, it all makes a difference, and it's one of the reasons why the town of Okotoks is a leader in municipal water stewardship. Please continue to do those things as that is what will get us through the summer ahead. So with that, we hope you leave here tonight with a level of comfort knowing that we have the systems, we have the strategies, and the plans in place so that we will manage our growth in a thoughtful and responsible way. Thank you for joining us. We were going to be here for questions if you have any. Thank you so much for coming tonight.